I've been in IT for over 10 years. I have yet to go down the Linux path. Welcome to DebtFreeinIT. I'm your host, Mike. This podcast is for anyone who's looking to get into the IT industry, whether it's for a career change or you're just interested. I think you come to the right place. Today's episode is all about Linux versus Windows. So most of us, when it comes to Windows, we're probably already pretty comfortable with it. So we grew up on it. Most of us, if we got a job where we utilize a computer system, 9 times out of 10, we're probably using a Windows system. And then if you're on the help desk side or operations side, you're probably troubleshooting Windows systems every day. But is that the only operating system you really need to know in the IT industry? Then we have Linux. So Linux, I like to call this the caviar of operating systems. You know, it's a acquired taste. Not everyone likes it, but it's valuable, especially if you're trying to level up in the cloud, DevOps, or anything within cybersecurity. So in this episode, I'm breaking down the pros of each one of these operating systems, what makes them valuable, and how they compare when it comes to pay. So let's get to it. So the first thing I like to look at is the pros of knowing the Windows operating system. So Windows is widely used in government and enterprise environments, which means that 9 times out of 10, or I could probably go out on the edge and say 10 times out of 10, if you're in an organization and you're utilizing a computer to do your job, more than likely that computer is running some flavor of the Windows operating system. And then also the Windows operating system is easier to learn. So basically, if you're someone who's not computer savvy and you get a job where you have to utilize the computer to do your job, there's not a steep learning curve for you to be able to get to the point to where you can do your job without any issues. So there's an easier learning curve to Windows. And then also with Windows, it's common in most help desk and desktop support roles and even entry-level system admin roles. So usually at these roles, you're supporting users. So if you're at the help desk, you're taking the phone calls, you're helping users resolve issues. And most of the time, you need to know that Windows computer. So you need to know a little bit more from a general user. You know, you need to know some troubleshooting steps. You need to know a little bit of command line, you know, how to look at some resources from the command line. So you need to know a little bit more than a general user, but more than likely, you're helping to support a Windows environment. So the next thing I want to look at is some of the pros to knowing Linux. So when it comes to Linux, it's utilized a lot on the IT side of things. So if you're at a large organization or you're looking to get into a large organization, most likely you need to have some sort of Linux background, or you at least need to know your way around Linux. So Linux, it dominates the cloud infrastructure. And then also with Linux, the command line is king. The command line gives you better control and also automation. And then also with Linux, it's open source, which means that there's no licensing fees. So basically, if I download a Linux distribution on my PC, I'm able to run it without paying a thing. Whereas if I download Windows 11 on my PC, you have to pay that licensing fee. And then when it comes to cybersecurity, you must know Linux. So you have Kali Linux, and then also a lot of tools that's used within cybersecurity. A lot of those tools is built on Linux. So as you can see with Linux, it's more on the IT support side of things, where also Windows is utilized too. So you have Windows Server administrators that utilize mostly Windows. But usually from what I see, as you start going to larger organizations, that a lot of times they're going to want you to know some form of Linux and know your way around Linux. Pause. I'd like to introduce you to the Log Files. The Log Files is a weekly newsletter to help you start your IT career with practical advice and tips powered by yours truly. We launched it in the beginning of the year. It's packed with actionable advice, resources, and insights to kickstart your IT journey. The link is in the description as well as pinned in the comments. So don't miss out. Now back to the episode. The next thing I want to look at is which one of these operating systems is more valuable, or which one of them will bring more value to your career. So when it comes to the value of these operating systems, I think it will greatly depend on your path. So basically, knowing your way around Windows will get you hired, because most of our help desk entry-level support roles, in most cases, you're supporting a Windows environment. As I think back on my career, I can't think of any time that I was supporting anything other than Windows. So most of the time you're supporting that Windows environment. And then when it comes to Linux, I think the value comes in not from a user standpoint, meaning because most environments the users will be using Windows. So, but I think the value is as a IT professional when you start to get into those higher level roles like a cloud role, or maybe you get into DevOps, the majority of these roles will involve Linux. And then if you're someone that wants to be a cybersecurity professional, you need to also know Linux, because tools like Kali Linux and then other applications that you use or other tools within cybersecurity, all of those are built on Linux. So in short, in my opinion, I think Linux has more of the long-term growth because it helps you to stand out, because most environments, most people were comfortable with Windows, but you see very few people that's comfortable with Linux. So in my eyes, I think that someone having a Linux certification will definitely help you stand out, because that's something that the majority of people don't go for. So take me, for instance. I've been in IT for over 10 years. I have yet to go down the Linux path. So that's something that I've added to my list to learn more Linux, because I'm seeing as more and more technologies come about, Linux is in all of those technologies. So you need to know some form of Linux just to get into that technology. So like the cloud is a big thing now. And also that cloud is built on, you got to know some Linux within that cloud. So Linux is almost everywhere. So especially when it comes to the IT side of things, as we get more and more technologies, I think knowing Linux is going to be more and more and more valuable. So when it comes to the pay comparison for a Linux administrator and a Windows administrator, basically that Linux administrator came in roughly on average about 83 grand, where the Windows administrator came in at roughly about 79 grand. So remember, the administrator role, that will be a lower level role when it goes to those type of roles. It's not a senior engineer or anything like on that level. So those would definitely be higher. But in the case of comparing admin to admin, Linux came in a little bit higher, but not by much. But then I think where Linux makes a big jump, or knowing Linux makes a big jump, is when you get into the roles such as like a Linux cloud engineer, was those roughly came in anywhere from 120 to 130 grand, depending on the level. If you're a senior, some of those roles was roughly around 150 and up. So as you can see, there's a big jump when you get into those cloud environments, because in every cloud environment, Linux is utilized. So let me know in the comments, which one of these operating systems do you know better, Windows or Linux? And how has it helped your IT career? So that brings me to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, you can follow me at DebtFreeinIT. If you have any questions, you can email me at DebtFreeinIT@gmail.com, or you can visit me at DebtFreeinITwithMike.com. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Peace.